Good morning. It's Miss Lippy with Gemini Homestead. You see what I'm looking at? We had a storm come through and it took down some of my cucumber. So what I did is I harvested and I said, well, I won't be able to make a big batch, but I'll be able to probably put up 4 to 5 pints. So what you're seeing is a glass 2-gallon jug. It's got 2 gallons of distilled water, a cup of food lime. Now that's food grade lime. Now this is how I was taught. So some of you may actually use this method, some may not. But this is going to sit for 24 hours. And then I'll bring you back to the next step. It's going to be 3 days worth, but I think you're going to enjoy this recipe. So I'll see you in 24 hours. Okay, y'all, it's been 24 hours. Now they've had 3 rinsings. And how I do that is I pour them all into this side of the sink and I turn my water faucet on and I just let it just kind of slowly stream. I'll show you the setting that I do mine on so you get a visual. Like that. Okay? And the way I do mine, instead of just rinsing in a colander, because this is 7 pounds of cucumbers, I put them in the sink, and then I take a handful, 4 or 5 at a time, and I rinse them under that, and then I move them over to the other side. Once I get the other side full, I do the same method. I take 4 to 5 in my hand, rinse under water, move them back over. And I do 3 rinses, and then I just put them in the colander. Now I'll come back and I'll show you the next step to this. So the first step was 7 pounds of cucumbers, 1 cup of food grade lime, 2 gallons of distilled water. They soaked for 24 hours. And also, in case some of you don't know, I use food grade lime just for the crisp. I don't know, it's a texture thing with us, but we like crispy pickles. And I'm here to tell you that these things, they would just snap. They'll snap in two. And that's what we like. So I'll bring you back when we get them soaking for the second soaking. Okay, we're back. They're sitting in distilled water covered in ice. And since we don't have a well, we're on actually city water, even though we live out of the city limits. Anytime I'm going to do this, I boil my water the night before on the stove. And that's what I call my distilled water. Now this is going to sit 4 to 6 hours. So if I get busy, I'm not too concerned if it does hit the 6-hour mark. And then I'll bring you back. This may be a long process, y'all, but oh, it is so worth it. Because the steps are actually short. It just takes 3 days to complete. So I'll bring you back. Okay, step 3. We have drained the ice water off the cucumbers. Let me see if I can get up here close, up in here. Y'all don't look at my glass bowl. This is strictly for my pickling. And they are so crisp. Now we're going to go over here and make the brine. Okay, in this pot, all I did was dissolve 8 cups of vinegar, which is 2 quarts, 6 cups of sugar, and 1 tablespoon pickling salt. Or you can use salt just as long as it's not iodized. And you're going to stir until it's just dissolved. Once it's dissolved, you're not trying to heat it, you're just trying to dissolve it. Then you're going to come in with your pickling spice. And that's 2 tablespoons mustard seed, 1/4 of a tablespoon of whole allspice, 2 teaspoons coriander seed, 4 whole cloves, 1 teaspoon crushed red pepper flakes. Now that's optional. I normally do 1.5 teaspoons, 1 cinnamon stick, and I do 5 Chinese red chili peppers. You can get them in the produce section or online. This is little red peppers that you'll see in Chinese food. And I put 5 in there because I'm estimating on getting 5 pints. So I'll add 1 of those to each pint. But now this is strictly optional. We like that little bit of a spicy sweet. So now that you have those all incorporated, we're going to move to the next step. Okay, this step, all I did was pour the brine over the cucumbers. And this is going to sit 12 hours. I'm telling y'all, it's going to be worth it. Because it pretty well does its own thing. It's just that you got to be patient. So this was the brine. I just put it over the cucumbers. It's going to sit 12 hours. And then tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to go ahead and process them up. Okay, y'all. It's morning. When I said 12 hours on the last step of soaking in the brine, it got late, so all I did was set the glass pickle container that you've seen in the first 4 clips. I just set it in the fridge. Pulled it out this morning, and I have separated the pickles. And we'll walk over here to the brine. Now all I'm doing is bringing this brine up to a slight boil. I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer 30 minutes. And while that is simmering, I've got my pot over here heating up. And then we're going to come over here, back over here to the pickles. And in this bowl you see 3 sliced sweet yellow onions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pack the jars. I'm estimating 5 pints. But I'm going to pack the jars with the pickles and the onions. And then after 30 minutes, when the brine has set, which is over here again, we're going to fill the jars. When we get to that step, I will bring you back. Okay, we're back. Now as you can see, there's 5 pints and 3 quarts. Throughout the steps I kept saying I'm going to get 5 pints. I really meant quarts, but I've been putting up a lot of jelly, and jelly goes in pints, and I guess I had pints on the brain. But really, this recipe usually yields about 5 quarts. So, since I said pints, I went ahead and pulled out some pint jars so y'all could see. But here you go. And all I did was take the brine that you saw that I was simmering for 30 minutes on a simmer. I packed the jars with the onions and then also the brine pickles. And I ladled the brine on top. Now we're going to water bath for 15 minutes. Now, when I spoke of these red Chinese chili peppers, back in the day my dad grew cayenne peppers. And that's what I grew up knowing was the cayenne pepper in the jars. Well, I didn't grow cayenne peppers this year. But since I've been introduced to these Chinese red peppers, I really like them. They seem actually even milder. But if you have cayenne peppers and you're growing them, use those. That was actually the original recipe that I grew up with. So we're going to water bath them 15 minutes, and I'll bring you back. Here you go. 15-minute water bath. Can't wait to hear the sounds of the pop. But again, this makes approximately 5 quarts, not 5 pints. I got to get that jelly out of my head, but I'm fixing to put jelly up again next week. But here you go. I'll put my ingredients in the description. Now, the original recipe that my Aunt Hazel had was 8 cups of sugar. I used 6 cups of sugar, as I said. But, you know, y'all can make it as sweet as you want. We just kind of like the sweet and the spicy. But here you go. I hope y'all make it. Let me know what you think.